Hello, bonjour, and welcome to Technology and the Essential Worker, a look at the future of employee engagement for our very essential long-term care workforce. I'm your host, Justin Rudwell, and I'm very happy to be speaking to you today about essential workers, what makes them essential, and how organizations can use technology to enable, empower, and humanize this segment of the workforce. Before we start, a little bit about me. I'm a dual citizen of the United States and the United Kingdom, and spent most of my adult life living and working in London. I started my career as a shift supervisor in Jackson, Tennessee, making Pringles cans in 1996, and 4 years later I landed a consulting job with PricewaterhouseCoopers in London. This is me in 2001, walking down Villiers Street toward the PwC offices at Embankment Place. I've been fortunate to have lived many work lives as a factory worker, a management consultant, a wine importer, a healthcare advisor, a sailor, an environmentalist, a husband and father. Above all else, I'm a problem solver. This led me to my latest endeavor, working as general manager for Redeapp, a technology company that is solving an age-old problem. How do we change the way we manage, work with, and engage with the non-desk worker? What is a non-desk worker? Well, a non-desk worker is a worker that doesn't sit at a desk, and therefore doesn't have the typical infrastructure that is enjoyed by what we call the information worker. While an information worker is supported by technology such as email for communication, digital calendars for managing meetings, and an intranet for things like company resources, the non-desk worker is typically managed and communicated with face-to-face through manual or paper-based processes. Even if they did have access to the information worker's tools, they don't have time to check email or peruse an intranet because, well, they're too busy making things or providing a service. Think construction, manufacturing, logistics, hospitality, and of course, healthcare. The vast majority of these workers are non-desk and clearly essential because without them, the world as we know it would stop. I suspect that most attendees watching and listening today are currently information workers. I also suspect that many of you will have been a non-desk worker at some point in your career. And if so, during this presentation, try to cast your mind back to that time and place to remember what it was like. Did you feel empowered, supported, valued, and essential? Did you believe in the mission of the organization? Did you know what the mission was? If you answered no to any of these questions, rest assured you are not alone. Throughout history, non-desk workers have put themselves on the line for the benefit of others. During times of war, the less educated populace makes up a greater proportion of those who fight on the front lines. When a global pandemic hits, we still expect to be able to consume products and receive services, even if we ourselves have the luxury of working from home. It's the hourly worker, the checkout girl at the grocery, the line worker making hand sanitizer, and of course the caregiver looking after our elder community, who put themselves at risk for the sake of the general public. These workers are given the badge of essential during our most challenging moments. Let's look at just one example through the eyes of your Gran. Your Gran Rosie is happily situated at a beautiful, advanced, innovative, nurturing Eden Care facility in Regina, Saskatchewan. The caring leadership and staff at Eden Care understand that Rosie's feeling of being right at home is dependent on a number of factors that include psychological well-being, social interaction, and the built environment. Furthermore, there are a number of sub-factors that impact on Rosie's sense of well-being. These include sense of acknowledgement, maintaining one's habits, sense of control, interaction with relationship and staff, interaction with other residents, interaction with family and friends, interaction with pets, activities, the private space, the public space, personal belongings, technology, look and feel, outdoors and location. Enter March 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic starts to take hold globally. Elders are at highest risk, and long-term care facilities are forced to take drastic measures to protect residents and staff. What happens? There's a loss of control. The public space is shut down. That changes the look and feel for the residents. Interaction with other residents is ceased. which impacts activities, perhaps most importantly of all, interaction with family and friends, comes to a halt. This changes habits, and you start to lose a sense of control and ability to cope. What you're left with, the essential worker coming to the rescue. In many cases, the only people who are able to provide a sense of normality, a mechanism for coping, activities, and human interaction are the staff themselves. It doesn't get much more essential than that. So we can all agree that these workers are essential in times of crisis, but what about when things are, all good? The term essential magically appears as a moniker for these workers and just as quickly disappears once the danger is past. What we as a society have largely failed to do is treat these workers as essential all of the time, in good times and in bad. In the past, we might not have even noticed the need to adjust our perspective, but the world is changing at a rapid pace, as are the expectations of today's non-desk worker. Let's take a look at some of the key changes that are driving this shift. The first big change is one of supply and demand, or choice and mobility. The second big change is one of generational expectation, such as shared purpose. And the third big change is the proliferation of mobile technology, specifically smartphones. Let's take a look at each of these in turn. Firstly, let's look at supply and demand. As with many non-desk industries, long-term care is experiencing a massive pinch in supply of people to carry out these critical roles. This is partially down to basic numbers. According to the OECD, the number of elderly people aged 65 or older has been trending upwards for decades. In 2018, more than 17% of the population of Canada was aged 65 or greater, up from just over 7% in 1970, more or less in line with the OECD average, seen here in black. As this trend continues, not only will there be more demand, but there will also be greater competition amongst providers for caregivers to fulfill the need. Attracting and perhaps most importantly, keeping employees is going to be essential going forward. Moving on to our next big change, generational expectation. In a recent study by PwC looking at the value of purpose in the workplace, employers and business leaders were clearly mismatched in terms of their priorities. In part, this disconnect could be down to a generational shift. The same study determined that millennials were 5.3 times more likely to stay when they had a strong connection to their employer's purpose. In contrast, non-millennials were only 2.3 times more likely to stay given a strong connection to the employer's purpose. The upshot? New generations of workers have different expectations than their predecessors, and alignment with purpose is key. Finally, the third big change, proliferation of mobile technology. According to the Pew Research Center, smartphone ownership has reached 76% in 2018 across advanced economies. Furthermore, as of 2019 in the United States, 90% of all Gen Xers and 93% of all millennials owned a smartphone. Why are smartphones so important for today's non-desk workers? Because smartphones often represent the best and sometimes only way to reach these workers. As communication has evolved over time, and since the invention of the internet in 1969, nearly all of the innovations have been developed with either social engagement or the information worker in mind. Until very recently, technology companies have largely ignored the non-desk workers through lack of investment or made the incorrect assumption that platforms built for social engagement or the information worker apply equally well to the needs of the non-desk worker. Now, with the proliferation of smartphone access and technology available to the non-desk worker, we have an opportunity to move away from traditional forms of management and communication, such as bulletin boards, paper forms, and manual processes. By investing in the right type of technology, companies can create an operational infrastructure specifically designed to meet the needs of this segment of the workforce. This in turn drives something that we at Redeapp call work trust. Traditional views of loyalty have shifted to include more than just monetary compensation in exchange for a life of work. Employers need to establish work trust with their staff. Work trust is a behavioral outcome that results from an organization's quantitative and qualitative investment in creating a culture of care that enables strong operational leadership and empowers the workforce. Work trust most often exhibits itself in the form of a feeling of being supported, empowered, and part of a collective for the betterment of both the individual and the whole. If I feel supported, respected, and valued, then I am more likely to stay. So we've established that access to mobile technology is central to creating an environment where the non-desk worker feels a sense of work trust and fully engaged. But how that technology is structured and the purpose behind the design is just as important when creating a genuine connection. Let's not forget that most technology support infrastructure to date has been designed and built for the information worker, and the needs of the non-desk worker are very different indeed. In order to best understand the future of supportive technology for the essential non-desk worker, we first need to understand what currently happens at a practical level. Simplistically, organizations approach engagement with the non-desk worker in one of three ways. The first of the approaches is chaos. Information workers in various departments fulfill their daily obligations in support of the business and the essential non-desk workforce out in the field. Information is created within various departments, all of whom have their own priorities, and delivered through a middle management layer. Without a structured operational infrastructure in place, middle managers are left to their own devices when delivering information and support, which can lead to disjointed, uncoordinated, and mostly one-way communication. While information workers have access to support tools like intranet, email, and Slack, these same tools are not useful for the non-desk worker. Many do not have access to email. Company intranet is unwieldy on a mobile device, and connectivity through text, phone, or social media apps present innumerable operational, security, and compliance issues. The end result, confusion, lost productivity, and lots of distracting noise. In the second category, we have organizations who understand that mobile for non-desk workers is the way forward, and investment is made in platforms and technologies that seek to replicate the same formula that works for information workers. Multiple apps or platforms individually accessed with a design focus on features and functions rather than desired business outcomes. The end result, high cost of development, maintenance and management, increased complexity and risk, poor adoption, and an inability to analyze data properly. In the third and final category, we have genuine connection. Now, these are technologies that have been built from the perspective of and uniquely for the needs of the essential worker, focused on operational engagement and outcome rather than simple social engagement. You can think about these technologies as being a single mobile cloud, accessible via smartphone. This mobile cloud provides a secure and compliant environment wherein the essential worker can find anything and everything that is relevant to their work life. For the non-desk employee, it acts as a window into legacy systems, workflows, resources, documents, and communication. For the employer, it provides an ability to grant permission-based access, optimize labor, automate manual processes, digitize paper forms, create compliance, prevent data loss, and gain valuable insights into workforce performance. Most importantly, these modern-day technologies create real engagement for the essential worker, meeting them where they are and treating them as essential all of the time. Let's take a look at what genuine connection and engagement looks like in real life. Eden Care has 400 or so employees under contract across 12 different locations. They approached Redeapp in early 2019 because they wanted to be able to communicate with employees when power went out. This is a screenshot of some of the Redeapp platform. In addition, they wanted to digitize their paper forms and manual processes. They also wanted to be able to manage their shift swapping process more effectively. As an added bonus, Redeapp helped them meet COVID compliance requirements quicker than anyone else in the province. Because the technology truly empowers the workforce, Eden Care has seen a 100% adoption rate of the Redeapp platform, with an astounding 89% plus read rate across all messages. The proof is in the pudding. Eden Care's Chief Relationship, Research, and Innovation Officer, Bill Pratt, says it best here. In closing, here's something that I hope everyone has come to appreciate during the course of this session. Number one, non-desk workers are essential workers all of the time. and their level of engagement is critical to the experience of the people that they touch. Secondly, they have very different needs than information workers, and work trust is paramount. Thirdly, making a decision to invest in this workforce will be money well spent. And finally, not all technology platforms are created equal. In long-term care, employee satisfaction will be determined in large part by strong leadership, a shared sense of purpose, and technology that puts the needs of the worker first. That's it from me. This concludes the session on technology and the essential worker. I hope you enjoyed it.